Welcome back to another episode of Business Flow with Sume and Joe. This time we're talking all about divinity and flow. Joe, how are you doing today?
And I am way too blessed to be stressed.
That's what's up. Nice.
I am too anointed to be disappointed, and I'm too grateful to be hateful. And I was just thinking, it's Thanksgiving season here. It's a season of gratitude, and I think I am quite certain that gratitude is a divine quality. And also, I think there's some stuff going on in your environment with Denali, right? What's that all about?
Yeah, Diwali. Yeah, it's the festival of light. Um, what's so interesting? The Sanskrit word for gratitude is kritajna, which basically krita means like cultivation, and jna is like a state of consciousness. So gratitude is a cultivation consciousness. I think that's quite cool. As a translation is a direct translation. That we have to cultivate our gratitude. It's not just like this little thing we do to virtue signal or like to show people that we're grateful, but to actually like embody it.
I saw a really great church talk. It was about being grateful under all circumstances, meaning even in the worst times of your life, there's a lesson there, or there's something to be grateful there. I'm grateful it's not this way all the time. I'm grateful that, my mess will turn into a great message. I'm grateful that no matter how bad it is, it could be worse. Somebody's got it worse than me. So there's a lot of things. So, having gratitude when everything is flowing and beautiful and wonderful is easy, but, under tough circumstances, having that gratitude, that's divine. It's divine to have that ability. And that really, brings us to the topic. But, your holiday there, I looked it up on Google, and it's basically says it's the celebration of light, how light conquers dark.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think the word guru means gu means light and ru means dark, right? So guru is somebody that helps somebody who's in the dark and transform them into the light in whatever they're a guru at. But I think that guru and this holiday, is it Denali or Diwali or
Yeah, Diwali. Yeah.
Diwali? Is celebrating this the light, how the light always conquers the dark, um, and a guru, somebody. I think it's divine to help people go from their dark place into their light place, and so I think that's a good place to open this up. But anyway, I was inspired. I met a girl named Christine Grauer, and she wrote this book, which is hard to see here, called Project Life. And in the back, one thing she talks about, and we all know this from, language can create, your words can create worlds. And so in the appendix of this book, she's got a list of, about maybe about 50 divine qualities. I gave you that list, right?
Yeah, I think I have it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll find it. But so I thought what we would do is bounce back and forth. I'll choose some of these words, and you choose. I'll choose a word and we'll talk about it. You choose one, and we'll go through about 20 of these, or 15, 20 of them. And so the first one that I'd like to talk about, and I'll send that file to you real quick, so I know I have it real close by.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the divine qualities is this idea of discernment. And discernment is this. I used to think discernment was the ability to sort right from wrong and good from bad, right? Those kinds of things. But in my evolution and growth, I have learned that discernment doesn't just have the ability to sort right from wrong, but it's the ability to sort right from almost right. Because, almost right ain't right, and there's this idea of you can be kind of right, like hitting the tennis ball. Like if you hit it kind of right, it's a struggle. But if you hit it in the sweet spot, it soars, it flows. Okay. And so a large part of discernment is this ability to fine tune our thinking. And I was reading, Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, but he wrote another book called The Law of Success. It's a big, giant, thick book. And one of the things he talks about in there is the glue, the thing that holds the whole Think and Grow Rich philosophy together is accurate thinking, accurate thinking, not, it should be called think accurately and grow rich, not think and grow rich, because it's a huge game changer. And the metaphor he uses is that accurate thinking is like a 20-ton wrecking ball, and inaccurate thinking is like a 2-pound tack hammer. So if your thinking is like spot on, you're powerful. But if you're a little bit off, man, you live in the struggle and you're not near as effective and you're not going to flow as much. Anything you want to say about discernment before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I was really interested in that word discernment quite recently, and I wrote something down. I said, stop splitting your attention and take one thing at a time. Just follow and stack that flow with discernment and intuition as a guide. So I think I was referring to this idea of wu in flow state, and basically how when you stay in a specific vibratory state, you live much more effortlessly because you're not pushing as much. You're more like a river consciousness rather than trying to force things. So I think discernment is really useful for when you're using your left side of your brain alongside intuition, because sometimes our intuition, I mean, it takes us too much into the right brain that we don't have any objectivity. But I think that once we have discernment, it can really balance out our hemispheres. And I think that's why it makes it a divine quality, because we can be in touch with intuition all we like, but we don't know what's going on there, right? There's spirits, there's entities, there's weird things, right, that we can't see. It's vagueness, right? It's all vagueness, it's all subconscious, it's all collective unconscious. And so a little bit of discernment, I mean, it'll save your life, right? Like if you have discernment that, hey, this person seems to be like they're going to pickpocket me or rob me, or in an environment where you might not be very certain, right? You go to a new place, that discernment will save your life. That's your guardian angel in that time. So I think it's definitely a divine quality.
People say trust your gut, and it's like, first of all, I listen to my gut, but it's not the only source of information. And I got to tell you, 9 times out of 10, when I trust my gut, I'm right. But one time I trusted my gut and it cost me $1.25 million. So it's like, maybe we need to take all the information in and not just our gut.
Right,
Because,
absolutely.
So I connect discernment with good judgment or wisdom, and fine tuning our thinking. Discerning is like this fine tuning of our thinking. And so, and you know what? Dan Kennedy was talking about, of all the Think and Grow Rich principles, accurate thinking is the most difficult because it takes work. It takes you got to deeply think about stuff at that deeper, think a second time, think a deeper level. Like, what are the implications of this? And discernment can ripple into this whole idea of, wisdom. We did a whole, wisdom and flow episode. People can go back and listen to that. And there's a lot of pillars to wisdom, and it's like making the best decisions possible based on, by the way, I bought that book, How to Get an A in Life. And it's got the pillars of the wisdom, but discernment, so there's faith. When you make a decision, is it in alignment or out of alignment with your faith? Integrity, attitude, discipline, relationships, growth, balance. We did a whole episode on this stuff. So if you're listening to this and you want to learn more just about discernment and wisdom and flow, go back and listen to that extra. So did you get the list I sent you? It's in your messenger.
Let me just check that. It. Yeah, I got it.
Let me pull the second one. Let me pull a second one here, and then you can come up with the third one. Okay.
Got it.
Being courageous is a divine quality. What does that mean to you? How is courage divine, and how can courage improve flow?
I think it's interesting, like in the Lester Levin scale or the David R. Hawkins scale of consciousness, courage is like the one that's almost like the tipping point that goes from energy expansive to energy draining. So courage is actually one of those things that gets you into energy expansive. And I think that's really cool. I also have courage written up on my like kind of vision board area. And it's a Stoic principle, I believe, courage. And I wrote that one down specifically for the principle of love flow. I mentioned because, you know, to really be able to have relationships and like take chances and things like that, you need courage. Like you need a lot of yeah, you need a lot of bravery to like be able to step in to that arena. Also in business, same thing, you know, it's like you need to put yourself out there and you have to be willing to be seen. And a lot of people, they're afraid of their own greatness. I think that's their golden shadow. So I think that courage allows you to take those bold risks and those steps. And with high risk comes high reward. So I think that that's how it helps with the flow, because risk is a flow state trigger, you know? So when you have that courage, when you have that bravery, it's like putting you in the spotlight, and it's feeling the fear, but then doing it anyway. Like that's how I describe it.
You know, it's coming up for me because this is business flow with Sume and Joe. There's this business side of it. One of the things that comes up for me is, you know, there's this idea of cold calling and call reluctance, like not having the courage to pick up the phone and talk to people, you know, and you know, and have conversations that could potentially lead to cash. And if you don't have that courage to pick up this phone, if you've got this call reluctance, and one of the things, you know, is we're talking about labels of divinity today, you know, and so Jay Abraham, my mentor, he said one day, he's like, well, I call them cold calls. That doesn't even sound fun at all. It's like, what if we called them, you know, learning and dissemination adventures? It's like a learning adventure. It's a dissemination adventure. When I get on the phone, I can learn about people and I can disseminate, I can share information with them. And it's an adventure. It's fun, you know. But, you know, I think you'll have more courage if you look at it like it's a fun thing. It's, you know, it's a mutually beneficial thing. So, you know, we get to connect with other human beings, especially today in this, you know, we got, you know, quarantines and this, you know, where there is a lot of disconnection going on right now. And having the courage to connect between actually being connected and being lonely. And so it totally makes sense in terms of love flow to have courage, and it totally makes sense in the business world to have it as well. So what's another divine quality that you want to talk about? You're muted.
Yeah, let me just look through this list. Let's see. Well, I think in regards to flow state, like definitely fluidity. I think fluidity is like
Is divine.
just perfect. Is divine. It's just perfect for that. And
why?
I think because water is like this there's such a deep connection to water. We're 70% water, you know. I had a Tai Chi instructor tell me once that, you know, give it your 70%, don't give it your 100%. Save that 30% back for your glow, you know, for your aura. And I always remember that, man. Like, I don't know, there's something about like fluidity that it's like not giving so much effort. It's like kind of moving with the path of the least resistance. It's like that sense of, okay, I'm going to be adaptable, right? I'm going to be that shapeshifter when I need to, because it's necessary for me to be this. Like, I can't be so caught up in my ego that I'm going to start to self-sabotage and like, you know, get into these defensive patterns. I want to let go and become formless so that people will relate to me as a spiritual being, right? So I think that's why fluidity is so important, is because you can take on the form of anybody and you can get to that compassion. I think that's really important when it comes down to divinity as well, is to be empathetic. It's not about putting them in your place, it's about putting yourself in their place, right? I always say. So
yeah, nice. When I think of when I think of fluidity, when I think of flow, one of the things that popped into my head was, you know, my testimony coming back to Christ, coming to God. And I remember I was just like, I was having a lot of struggle in my life at that time. And I'm like, I had this conversation, okay, God, I've tried it my way. It's not working out so good. It's like, I'll try it your way now. And it was something really magical happened where it was like, all of a sudden, it was like, I didn't have to, like, before I made that declaration, it was like I was swimming upstream against the river, exhausted and not getting anywhere. And when I surrendered, it's like, that was like me fighting my way. Okay. But the moment I said, okay, God, I'll do it your way, like there's a river of life, there is a river of spirit, there's a river of consciousness, there's a river of something that will take you to the blessings. It's like, and all you, once you surrender to the river and the flow, it like you will achieve everything you want and need. Everything you need, God will provide. But quit trying to do things my way and actually do things his way and get into his that higher flow, and like magic happens.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of people say, get out of your own way, but some people, they're not even sure what the way is. It's like they've got to figure out, first of all, what is their way. I wanted to bring up this one, oneness. I think it's a really interesting one. I remember once I
Before you,
was
before you go there,
okay. Yeah.
the reason I brought that up is because one of the other divine qualities is faith, faith, faith. So flow, there's a connection between faith and flow. There's a connection. And so faith is a divine quality, and that ability to have faith to do things divine's way, it actually creates, like it allows things to flow much more effortlessly. So faith and flow are deeply connected. And why don't you go ahead and talk about oneness?
Yeah, I was once freaking out, I remember, and I was like, I think I had a panic attack. I called one of my spiritual friends, and he told me, just get back to your oneness. And you won't believe how surprisingly it helped, because what I did was I like paused the video game of my life and I started to become the observer from that state of oneness. And I started to notice that, hey, wait a second. I'm not the only one having this experience. There's other people around the world, right? Like experiencing things way worse or way better. And it's all relative, right? And so I got into the state where I was like, whoa, I'm not looking at this small picture. I'm not shrinking anymore. I'm looking at the bigger picture now. And I think that's when that oneness really started to help, where I was like, I felt connected with myself and connected with others again. Whereas so many times when we get out of flow, we feel disconnected and we feel like we can't get along with others and we just want to isolate. But I think that once we get into that um, social engagement factor and we start to create that, you see synchronicities, right? Which a lot of people mention this, like in flow state, you see a lot of synchronicities, which is closer to the divine. But that's just reminder of oneness, right? Because everything is connected. And so
Yeah.
when you realize the synchronicity, it's basically a reminder for oneness, which a lot of people I think miss out on that factor. But yeah, it's really
Yeah, and
important.
there's this oneness between humans, and there's this oneness of with God. And there's this whole thing in Christianity about there was the Garden of Eden, and then they had the fall. And what happened is before the fall, they were in the presence of God. Okay. And after the fall, they were still in the presence of God, but they didn't feel it. They couldn't see it. And so there's this illusion of separation. Okay. And so what happened in the garden was the fall, and then the illusion of separation. And the term they used when Jesus Christ came was the atonement, at one, to the atonement of Jesus Christ, to help us become at one with God again, to remind us that we are always in the presence of God, even though he is behind the veil, he's behind the curtain, but God is always present, even if you can't see or hear him. And the whole point of that, this is divinity, personified, is that we can be at one with God. We forget that we're at one with God. And when we remember that through the atonement of Jesus Christ, we can be at one with God, it makes everything so much more meaningful.
Absolutely. I have a little figurine here. It's Brahma in Hinduism. He has these four heads, and he's said to be like the creator, right, of all the other, whoever knows how many, like 32 million or something gods, right? Um, but he's like the one, like the creator, Brahma. And there's this thing called Advaita Vedanta, which basically Advaita means non-dual, right? And so they have this belief of like oneness, like we're all connected, and every single thing on this planet has this essential divine quality of Brahma, which is God, is what they believe. Like if you zoom into the atoms and you keep zooming in, you'll find that empty space, which is God, is what they believe. Like scientists don't have a term for it yet, but Hindus have a term for it called Brahma. So there we go.
God is everywhere,
Yeah, absolutely.
which means he's in the bathroom watching you as you shower. So he's creeping on. All
Yeah,
right, what's
like
another one? So another word that I like is harmony. My karate sensei used to always say harmony is the most precious element of our lives. And that's kind of a weird thing coming from a martial arts guy that teaches you how to like make a perfect fist and punch through the throat and rip out testicles and stuff. So like that's like it seems disharmonious to learn these things. But we learn these things because disharmony does happen in our lives. And sometimes you got to use some disharmony against the disharmony to bring back the harmony. Like, like when disharmony shows up. And so I think harmony is a divine quality, absolutely. And I like being in a state of harmony. And I'm traveling now, but one of the things I'm definitely going to buy from Amazon, I think it costs about $6. But when I do get my next place to live, I'm going to put one of these signs up and it says drama-free zone. And, I want harmony in my home. The world's kind of a crazy place, but in my home, I think harmony, that lack of unnecessary drama. But I like this idea of having a sign like that on the wall, because if anybody's arguing or anything, you just point to the sign and say, take it outside.
yeah, that's
But
great.
what about harmony? What comes up for you around harmony?
I remember once I had this post where I was like saying um something about I was like a wordplay with the word harmony, where I was like, we need to have harmony without harming many or harming money. And you know,
Money?
yeah, harming money or harming many. So
Oh,
I think a lot of people, they want to achieve this quality of harmony. I think that's the whole point of psychology, is this like individuation or integration of, we want to get to this equilibrium point or this balance, right? And so I think with harmony and divinity, when we're going overboard or when we have this sense of no moderation or no temperament, which is again, it's another stoic quality, then we don't have any harmony. We're just kind of overdoing it. And sometimes the road to excess leads to the palace of wisdom. So again, of course, every experience brings us back to neutrality. However, at the same time, I think that there is a benefit for not just waiting for the crisis moment to launch us into change, or waiting for the pain to then get us to be motivated. I think it's important to just generally know our limits and then achieve harmony in our craft and what we know best. And that's the way we can make money, is we have to be unique with usefulness and add value with our harmony. Because if we're too little or if we're too much or too less, we're either going to be, overly authentic or overly relevant, but then not authentic enough. And it's just, there's no sweet spot. So I think for the sweet spot to occur, we need that harmony to get us to that flow divinity.
there's two things that come up for me around that. This idea of balance is very close to that. And I remember, like, if you're like balanced, you got like, there's these two sides of, you could be, if you're centered and balanced, it's like, it's kind of cool, but it could be a little bit boring. And so sometimes you gotta run to the edge to kind of create some movement and excitement. And if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. The other thing that came up is when I was thinking about balance, I remember Eric von Sydow, otherwise known as Hypnotica. He said that, he says, I strive for Zen and I achieved Zen one time and it was boring. So
That's funny. Yeah.
um, what comes up for you, man? You want to
Oh
cover another
man.
one?
Yeah. Just in regards to that balance and harmony thing, like I've loved this analogy of looking at balance kind of like a seesaw, like, oh, I have to sacrifice my work to get my relationships right, or to sacrifice my relationships. It's like this paradigm of like compromise, sacrifice. Whereas
Not the
harmony,
best metaphor.
yeah, but harmony is more like an orchestra where all the musical instruments in your life are playing and you're the conductor,
Mm,
and you're like making sure that the harmony or the melody and everything is playing together in one song universe. And I think that's a better analogy than the whole seesaw effect where it's like, oh, I have to
I
give up
like
something.
that. That
Yeah.
is really good, man. I collect like business metaphors, and yeah, I think that seesaw thing, like we do risk versus reward. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but um, like, but this idea of other than a seesaw, things can be like an orchestra. That's a much better metaphor.
Yeah, it's like we have to quiet down the drums a little, make sure the tuba's playing a little bit more. It's more of like a maneuvering rather than this like polarity switch, right? Yeah.
It's a blending of the elements, and that's another metaphor. Is I heard somebody say, when I was in chemistry class, there's this thing called the periodic table of elements, and it's like, he says, I don't know much about chemistry, but I do know one of the things about, you have your elements and then you have your formulas. Like, what do you do with it? So, like, what's your formula? Like, what's your formula? How do you combine the elements? And so, like, we have all the raw materials of life. How do what's your formula? How do you, or what's, like, these are the musical instruments of an orchestra. Like, okay, these are the elements of the orchestra, but what's your formula for how you move the music around to create an experience? Uh, and the thing about an orchestra that's nice is, if you just did happy high note boom of the drums and we need that.
Yeah,
It's
the
that
crescendo.
drama. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the drama and it's the high highs and the low lows, the loud louds and the soft softs and the fast, super fast, and then slowing it down. It's all of these things combined together create a harmony and a beauty. And by the way, that's another divine quality. Why don't we talk about beauty?
Yeah. I love that, man. It's interesting. I've always looked at the word transform, and I know the word trans means go beyond, right? And so beyond form, right? Transform. And so I always thought of the word transform as going beyond beauty because form is what we associate with beauty oftentimes, like the physical. But I think when we're changing ourselves, we're going beyond this concept of beauty into spirit, right? And I think that things can be beautiful not just from the outside but from the inside, and I think that it's important that we start to really reflect on what we mean by beauty. We've always said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder and all this kind of stuff, but I think it's important to recognize, what does soul candy look like. Like, okay, I see that a lot of eye candy going around, but what is
Right.
that soul? You know what I mean, Joe? Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
what, that's what's coming up for me in terms of beauty. What about you?
So sweet. You're sweeter than a candy store. uh, yeah, I remember, I studied some stuff with Zan Perion. He's brilliant. And one of the things is like, I appreciate beauty in all of its forms. And sometimes we look at something and we kind of see it ugly, but like having this ability to see beauty even in things that are not beautiful, I think is, you see some dog poop on the ground, you can say, okay, that's ugly. But then you say, you know what, it's part of the cycle of life and it's a fertilizer and it's helping the plants grow. So like we can, like having this ability to see beauty, this is something very simple. It's a water bottle. Okay. I appreciate the beauty of this thing. I mean, it took a sculpture to like make the molds, to do the blow molds on this thing and make it so that you know, it takes a lot of money. It's not cheap to make a mold. But once that mold is made, they can stamp out water bottles all day long. And I think it's beautiful. And this one's got like ripples and flow in it. And, you know, there's actually a little bit of artistic design going on here. And like, if I take the time, like I can see beauty just because I took the time to look for the beauty.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not just a container, it's not just a water bottle, but it's artwork, it's sculpture. Somebody actually took the time to design this and do a little bit extra to make it aesthetic and appeal. And
Yeah,
you
and
know,
what we measure also grows, right? And so if you're seeing the beauty in something, it's obviously it's going to start to emerge, because we all have this quality to be creative and look at the beautiful. However, we have to learn how to look at the mundane and make it magic, or look at like a chore and see that, oh no, it's actually a mission, right? Just like you were doing with the words, I think we have this ability to make things beautiful. Um, and I think Zen also said something like beauty needs a witness, right? I really love that as well. It's like beauty needs a
yeah,
witness.
that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, it just is. So there's like beauty requires a witness, and that witness, real like there's something in the witness of gratitude. Like if you I have this gratitude for what I'm witnessing, and I call that beauty. Like it's almost like
Yeah.
gratitude is part of beauty.
Yeah.
Like I
That's
see the
powerful.
beauty in it. Health. I mean, health is a divine quality. What's life like
For
when you
sure.
don't have your health? I know I got slammed with COVID-19 about 6 months ago, and I didn't feel like moving, man. You know, and I got through it. Now I got the antibodies, whatever, you know, but you know, you can't get much done. You can't do much living without your health. And you know, in the scriptures it talks about treating your body like a temple. And how many people don't treat their body? How many people treat their body like a woodshed, you know, like not that good. And I think a lot of people, they treat their body poorly because there's no immediate negative consequence. You know, you smoke a cigarette, you're not going to die from one cigarette. But what happens is when you smoke every day, you know, 3 packs a day, you know, after a while, this stuff creeps up on you and your health is going. And how can you do divine work in this world if you're not healthy? And so health, you know, doing those things to nurture yourself, to nurture your mind, to nurture your body, to nurture your spirit, to nurture your business. You know, you want to have a healthy business, okay? You nurture it, okay? You want a healthy business. So it's a divine quality for the self. It's also a divine quality getting into this idea of business flow. But let me pass it back to you.
Yeah, I think health is a really important one, because without health, I mean, you're kind of you're kind of stuck. You're pretty much in this lack of momentum, right? And I think momentum is definitely equivalent to flow. And I think not even physical health, but mental health. I think a lot of people they override that. If we look at the Kybalion and we look at the first rule of alchemy, which is, you know, all is mind. If all is mind, if everything is mental, that means mental health is your number one priority, right? So you basically want to, you know, focus on how good you feel. If we look at the word dis-ease, we think of opposite of dis-ease would be ease, right? So we need mental ease in order for us to get over something. We need physical ease in order to, you know, overcome the dis-ease or the illness. So I really loved positive psychology and getting into that field, because it was looking at strengths and not just what's wrong with people, right? What can we fix in this person? What's broken in them? Instead, it's like, hey, what's already there? How are they staying in their lane? Let's expand and amplify that so they could be more in their lane, right? And I love that mindset shift. And I think that really helped me to also calibrate my own health, because I started to focus on the things that I wanted to grow in my life.
What was that principle? It's all mine.
Yeah, it's from the Kybalion. It's the Hermetic principle, like the first law.
You
Yeah,
know, when
all
you
is
said
mind.
that, it reminded me of this picture. There's like this dog is at the top of the canyon. There's all this land below, and the dog says, "It's all mine. All I got to do is pee on it first." Uh, but you know, that idea of it's all mine is like this idea of abundance, like, and abundance is another divine quality, and
Mm. Well,
abundant. You know,
I said all is mind, like mind,
all is
not mind.
mine.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, it is all mind, but it is all mine, you know,
Yeah, that's
that
true
comes
too.
from a state of abundance.
I was actually thinking of that word abundance and avoidance, because avoidance is you're dancing in the void, right? And you're just not getting anywhere. But abundance is like, okay, you have a bunch of dances and you're getting more and more. And it's like it's expansive, right? And
Having
I love
fun, fun attracts.
exactly, right? Uh,
Well, if you think of scarcity, scarcity,
yeah,
if you look at the word scarcity, it's scar city, you know, and
that's
so
true. That's
uh,
true.
it's scar city. Are you living in the scar city? Or are you living in the bun dance? Are you having fun making money, or are you wounded? And you know, I've come to this conclusion that we all have trauma and we all need healing, and we all are capable of healing, and we are capable of healing ourselves and healing others. And so I don't know if healing is on here, or, but this idea of abundance and scarcity. Go ahead and riff on that a little more.
Oh man, I was just talking about this earlier. Um, I think scarcity is this idea that we don't have enough, and when we don't have enough, it creates this feeling of lack. I know that, you know, the seven deadly sins all come from lack. Like greed is I don't have enough money, you know, lust is I don't have enough sex, and all this, like, just, you know, I don't have enough quality creates this urgency or this feeling of like I need more or I want more, and it gets us into that hamster wheel of always wanting to attain. And I think that's also the reason why, I mean, Yossi Ginsburg, incredible TED talk, he mentioned that, you know, that's the reason we have wars, is because someone's like, oh, I don't have enough land, let me take yours, right? So the scarcity mentality actually like harms us in the long term, whereas abundance actually helps us to prosper, thrive, and expand as a culture, and like move the needle forward. So I think that one is a growth mindset, one is a fixed mindset. That's another way to kind of classify it if we're talking Carol Dweckian. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, you know, and you know, the thing is it's not hard to witness abundance. All you got to do is walk outside. First of all, how much air is there to breathe? There's an abundant supply of air, you know. But all you got to do is sit out. You know, if you're in the city, or you know, look at the buildings. Oh, there's a $2 million building, and there's a $500,000 bill. You know, you see the cars going by. Oh, there was a $40,000 vehicle. That was an $80,000 vehicle. It's like you can see the abundance all around you. And I'm going to have you speak into this in a second. And that is, you know, there is abundance of cash in the world. There are like trillions and trillions of dollars of money is printed up, but like, why don't you have any? And so just because there's an abundance, it's the question is like, there's not enough money. It's like, there's just not enough money coming to you. Okay. It's like, and so like, we have these blocks and obstacles that block us from the flow. And we talked about openness, or we talked about oneness, but let's talk a little bit about openness and how openness can, like, if you're closed, you're not going to receive the abundance, but it's possible to receive some of the abundance when you open up to it. Why don't you connect with, like, there's this abundance, but why aren't you getting any? And how do we tap into that?
I think I see it really clearly when, you know, I ask people, or I give someone a very nice compliment and they're just sort of like, yeah, you know, it's just what I do. And they kind of brush it off. You know,
No
they're
big
not able,
deal.
yeah, yeah, they're like, oh yeah, you know, that's natural. It's just something, you know, they kind of, they don't really receive. They're not open to it. And so I think this openness, it really gets you to fully embody like what it is you're receiving, what gifts you're receiving. So to be open-minded, to be open-hearted, we need to first of all know that we're being guided. And that's, I think, what makes it a divine quality. is when you're open to change, when you're open to newness, and you're not so rigid in your thinking. You're not like, closed-minded or thinking that, oh, it has to be like this or it should be like this, where now that's creating these parameters of what society thinks it should be, or like, oh, what Gary Vee did or what Tony Robbins did, but it's not what you did, right? And so you need to find your map, and that's how, when you open up your heart and you receive more. We need both our heart and mind to manifest, right? One is our creation software, one is our design software. So we need to, design, we need to desire and create. Sorry, not design, desire, I meant to say. But yeah, we need both of those to manifest, right? To create and desire. And if we have an open mind and closed heart, we can't manifest, right? If we have a closed heart and open mind, it's like both of those have to be flowing, right? And I think that synergy, that alignment is really what gets you to get this divinity and this influx of good energy.
Those are internal things, and there's also this external thing, giving and receiving. And if you want to receive a lot, you got to learn to give a lot. But one of my mantras is I am a generous giver and an excellent receiver. And I think if people aren't receiving, it's either because they're not giving enough or there's something blocked in their receiver. You seem like somebody, like as a flow coach, you probably experienced this a lot. What would you tell somebody who says, I have receiving issues, or I'm not like I give all the time, but I don't receive, but clearly there's some blockages going on there. What would you tell somebody or advise somebody on to open that up?
Yeah, it's a lot of trust. It's working with your own level of deserving and trust. It's definitely a lot to do with putting up heart walls, and we have to find a way to really, de-armor your heart walls in a sense, where I do this process with people where we actually try and figure out, like, what is your heart wall made of, right? Is it made out of styrofoam? Is it made out of steel? Is it made out of terracotta? Like, how hard have you put up a barrier to block people from your world?
Yeah, I got like armor plate and Kevlar and
Yeah,
concrete. But the
yeah,
same wall that keeps out danger keeps out love. The same wall that keeps out danger keeps the blessings from flowing to you. So
yeah.
so talk a little bit about that heart wall. What's your heart wall made of, and how can we like open it up? And because you know what, trust is another divine quality.
Totally. Yeah. I think definitely the heart wall gets closed up when you start, well, again, when you start lying to yourself, or when you stop receiving the gifts and the blessings that are coming into your life, right? And so I think that, what was the question, Joe? Sorry, I was
Uh,
vibing to this music.
I'm a generous giver and an excellent receiver, but not everybody receives excellence, and they have these blocks in their,
Yeah.
whether it's their heart or their mind. And it's like the question is how can somebody dissolve those? Or I heard the same walls that keep out danger keep out the blessings.
Mhm.
Okay, and so like we want to receive, but then we have like these, we don't trust, and so like blessings are trying to pour our way. I'll get to you, we'll come back to you in a second. I saw this great church talk, and he talks showers of heavenly blessings, and how the Lord is trying to bless us all the time. And it's like the commandments are not like strict paternal rules. What the commandments are is like God wants to bless us, and if we keep the commandments, that's what allows the blessings to flow to us. And it's through sin that we block the blessings. It's through our own distrust that we block the blessings, that kind of thing. And so I think that if you want to receive the blessings, like righteousness, by the way, is another one of these divine qualities that are like, if you do the right things, the blessings will come your way. And if you do the wrong things, or if you just have this wall of distrust around you, it cuts off the blessings. Talk a little bit more about the receiving, lowering the walls, receiving the blessings, and what are the blessing blockers? There's a great topic for you right there. What are the blessing blockers?
What are the blessing blockers? Yeah. I think it definitely comes from a negative charge of emotion. So what we label as negative valence in positive psychology is like emotions like fear, guilt, shame, apathy, all these different things that really block your blessings, like you said. And we could have elated emotions in the positive too. So I think what's really necessary is you come from that pure awareness so that you're in neutrality instead of having this emotional charge of like this, this pain body or this trauma that's just like latching on to you, like constantly finding an invisible thread in all your experiences, right? It's like that feeling in your heart is associated with one memory, right? Maybe it's one memory where some girl rejected you or something happened, and you put up a heart wall in that specific instance. So I think that if you go back to the memory and you start revisiting some of that stuff and you start retelling your story in the way that you want it, I think that's going to give you your blessings back, because you have a particular way that you've told yourself your storyline that's made you block your blessings. And it's made you like your role has created a boundary around what you can receive. And your
Yeah.
identity has been created in such a way where it's like, oh no, I can't do that, right? And so I think that once people start really shedding those layers, that's when they really start to receive those blessings.
Okay. How are we doing on time? Maybe cover a couple more of these and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not too sure when we started. I know we were trying to figure out the recording. Um, yeah, I think let's do maybe like 10 more minutes or so. I think that's good.
Yeah. Um, so one that comes up for me is just authenticity. Uh, why is being authentic a divine quality? And I remember somebody in a training class I took, they said, they were talking about objections in like the sales process, or objections in the enrollment process. You're enrolling somebody to, doesn't have to necessarily be business, but um a lot of times we hear a rejection and we take it personally, and that shuts people down. And what this guy said is, whenever someone rejects you or says no to you or challenges you, it's a good opportunity for you to look at your own authenticity. Like, are you grounded in the right place? Are you grounded in truly trying to be like, here I am, I'm trying to enroll you in something that's good for you, and you're like resisting it, and so then you can like, it's a good opportunity to look at your own authenticity. Do I really authentically believe this is good for them? Do am I authentically doing this for selfless reasons? Are they truly a beneficiary from doing this? But that, having that grounding in like authenticity. What does authenticity mean to you? And how is it divine, and how does it increase flow?
Hmm. I think authenticity is when your inner and outer self has no incongruencies. It's just pure. I think you're being real. There's no kind of, there's no sense of like impurity, or like you're trying to leech energy or anything like that. It's just very pure. It's very authentic. It's very honest. Honesty is the best aphrodisiac, as Mark Manson says, right? So I think the opposite would be like, oh, you're a sellout, right? Like you're just doing everything just to be liked, and it's like this validation seeking trip rather than authenticity, which I think if you have a spiritual brand or a spiritual niche, you need to be very, very authentic when you're putting your work out there, because that pushy archetype of the 10x, like, that doesn't work for the spiritual niche. I've tried it. It does not jive well.
Oh,
It
connect your
doesn't.
spirituality.
Yeah. Spirit for more spiritual branded people, I think authenticity, transparency is even more relevant than if you just have a regular business. And I think personally, it's like an enlightenment 2.0. In the future, we're going to look at authenticity as like the new enlightenment. I think is like the person who's purely authentic is like made it in their self-actualization journey, in a sense, because they they understand that their personality is a survival strategy, and honestly, to be most authentic, we're focusing on what is truthful, what is real. And so we're more upfront, and we're using honesty to sort of pave the way rather than deceive people and things like this, where that always comes back to bite you later on. And it's like something that has consequences, right? Where authenticity doesn't have that many consequences unless you're like really like controversial or something, like you're making a claim, bold claim or something like that. I think generally authenticity is well respected because people, it gives people permission to open up and be authentic as well. I think that it's like a mirror. So if we're authentic, we're giving our clients or our customers
Easier for
a
others
chance to.
to be authentic with us.
Exactly. Yeah.
All progress begins by telling the truth. You talked about enlightenment. I mean, to be enlightened is divine, but I think the path to that, the word here in the divine qualities is awareness. I think awareness can lead. It's a prerequisite for enlightenment. And I want to wrap this up, but we'll pass it back to you in a second here to talk about enlightenment. But look, we've been talking about divinity and flow. Like, we've been talking about these divine qualities, and like, what's the ROI of like walking a more divine path? I don't know. It's hard to measure. Like, I don't know. Like, but I do know that if you are walking through the world righteous, I think if you have authenticity, I'm quite certain that if you are responsible, if you're somebody who sees beauty, appreciates beauty, if you live in a spirit of harmony, what other ones have we talked about? If you are open, if you have confidence and courageousness and come from a place of abundance, I'm certain that qualitatively that will impact your business at a huge level. I just don't know how to measure it. So, but this idea of doing the right thing, walking in a higher self, I think that it does impact your business and it does impact your flow. And with that, why don't you wrap up with awareness as a divine quality, and what are your closing thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think awareness is very important. I think awareness precedes control. It's like we can't control anything if we're not aware of it in the first place. And I think that, there is this geneticist, I think Dean Hamer, he has this self-transcendent scale. And he also, there's this other guy who talks about the God gene. Now there's not really one gene for flow state, but I noticed that the God gene is like what makes people spiritual in a sense, where it affects something about the monoamines that affects their higher level of consciousness. So it makes people more prone to be spiritual in a sense, right? And so it has a lot to do with the similar neurochemicals in a flow state experience than a religious experience or a mystical experience. So it's quite cool that there is this overlap with the science showing us that VMAT2 is the gene, right? So that VMAT2 is showing up in flow state, but then also showing up in God state or ecstatic states, right? Or spiritual states or quasi-mystical states. So I think it's really important that science and spirituality merge and start to really find out like what's really happening here, because of course there's like where science ends, philosophy begins and all this other stuff. I think it's just so cool to have that little bridge that these new scientists, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and all these people are doing, that are slowly opening up this kind of liminal space of like the physical and the metaphysical. So I think that's a cool way to wrap it up. Is
You're reminding me of a joke. Yeah, it's
go
like,
ahead.
once upon a time, a scientist was talking to God. And he's like, God, we don't need you anymore because we can create life in a test tube with nothing but dirt. And God's like, okay, this is of interest. Go ahead and show me. So the scientist, he's got his test tube and he bends over to pick up some dirt. And God goes, no, you're cheating. You got to make your own dirt first.
That's good. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I think that's an Yeah, go
You know,
ahead.
there is a merging between science and spirit. If God created everything, then he created all the scientific rules which our universe is governed by.
Oh yeah. I was just about to say, you know, that there's like a rapper slang that they use that it's like on God. On God means like I agree, or like yeah. Uh, it's like on spirit, you know, it's like I fully agree. And I thought it'd be cool to like use on Tao as well, like as a term,
Now,
because the Tao is like
now,
also the way, right? On Tao.
it's so valid.
And
Harmony
and
in this.
yeah, I think that was really interesting. You pointed out that thing about the dirt because I mean, a lot of divinity is very related to nature. I know nature, we have this idea of nature, but nature is ruthless and it's like, you know, it's nasty at times. And, you know, we sometimes compare nature
We
to
kill.
divinity, but I think in a poetic way, it does work in that there's no misshapen cloud or that, you know, uh, and all of these, you know, different analogies we give to nature. Like no flower looks at the flower next to it when it's blooming, and these ways, I think it definitely does apply.
Mother Teresa said it's like somebody was talking about overpopulation. She say, how can you say it's overpopulated? That's like saying there are too many flowers. You know, I
That's
thought that was
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. I also like that one
um,
where she says it's like a pro peace rally rather than anti war.
in an anti-war,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. That's a very
So
positive
look,
psychology thing as well. Yeah, go ahead.
we've been talking about divinity and flow, business flow with Sume and Joe. Um, I think that when you're marching in harmony, marching in beauty, when you're, you know, we're not just humans having a spiritual experience, we're spirits having a human experience to prepare us for our eternal progression. And when we recognize that this life that we have is part of a bigger picture, and when we're in alignment with that, when our spirit is aligned, we become kind of we live in the glow, we live in the nimbus. You know that you see the pictures of the saints with their halos, that glow. I've met a few people. Not everybody has that glow, but I met people with that glow, and it's like whoa. It's like I'm in the presence of something great here, and um, even if you don't believe in eternal, in the afterlife or the eternity, you know, what if you lived your life as if? Wouldn't you live your life a higher quality of way? And like, what if you lived as if? Maybe you don't believe in the eternal divinity, but what if you lived with divinity as if it was eternal? You know, if there is no eternity, you know, if there is an eternity, you hedge your bets with God. You know, I don't want to be wrong about this. I might as well live a good life to be prepared for that next life. Um, so that's what's coming up for me.
Yeah, man, and living in a virtuous life. I think a lot of the ancient Greeks they believed in this idea of eudaimonia and long-term happiness, right? And I think that a lot of us we live in this instant gratification day and age where we get everything instantaneously. And I think patience is a really important divine quality because it shows survival. It shows that you've lasted the test of time, you know, that you're willing to go through the fire over and over again and really persevere. And so, yeah, I think we can definitely end on that note. I think this was a powerful podcast. Definitely check out our other episodes, and yeah, keep tuning in to the flow zone.
Yeah, and if you need help creating some of that divinity in your flow in terms of your personal state, contact Sumed. He's a world-class business mentor, coach, guide. And if you're looking to create more of that divinity flow inside of your business, contact me. You know, we're here to help you. And with that, I just want to thank you. Be divine. May the flow be with you.
Man,
And I hope that this will help you get more of that abundance and prosperity and openness to allow those blessings to flow your way.
absolutely. Peace out, guys. May you never be